Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. This is a regularly scheduled city council meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, August 23rd, 2022. The time is 5:30 p.m. We have a very full agenda this evening, so we'll try to get through it as efficiently, as effectively as possible. Thank you for everybody who's attending tonight, who has some concerns regarding some of the items that are on the agenda today. And you'll have the opportunity to speak under the public forum if you wish to do so, and we'll call you forward and give you the time that you need to address the council. Pam, would you please take the roll call?
Baraboo,
Present.
Friedlieb,
Here.
Paulson,
Present.
Beyondich,
Present.
Johnson,
Here.
Baranzelli, Cuffey.
Here. Would you please stand, everyone, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. We'll move to item 4 on the agenda, which is the public forum. This is an opportunity for anyone from the audience who is not scheduled to appear this evening to come before the council and address the council on any item or any subject that you deem appropriate. So at this point in time, we have other things on the agenda coming forward, but at this time, if you'd like to come and speak, please come up to the podium, and you're welcome to the city council meeting, and anybody like to come forward, please do. If you would, please turn on the green light on the microphone, and please announce your name for the record, and welcome to the city council meeting.
Thank you. My name is Mary Beth Vercool, and I'm a fitness instructor formerly employed at the YMCA, and I came to talk about the rooms at the ITMEC, and to kind of address what is going on there and what I've read in the paper and what I've been told from the community members. Regarding the 3 rooms, the dryland room, the yoga room, and then I understand there's the fitness classroom, or the one with the equipment. I'm not sure of the terminology that you guys are using for all 3 of the rooms, but that's what I'll call them. I understand that the Parks and Rec were supposed to provide 3 proposals for the use of the rooms, and the use that we were told was option 1, and that was discussed and already agreed on. And this option, from my understanding, would charge instructors to teach classes there a monthly rent of $25 a month, and also require us to have liability insurance. Individual liability insurance for this type of thing can run anywhere from $40 to $70 a month. So now my cost potentially with the rent of the room would be $95 a month, a service that I would need to recoup. This does not include my annual cost of approximately $175 to stay certified, in addition to being CPR certified, which is roughly $25 a year. The annual cost for my music for my classes runs about $99 a year, and these are costs that instructors do not recoup. These are just things that we kind of do all on our own to stay certified and keep teaching classes safely. We put a lot of time and effort into planning each class, another unpaid expense that comes with teaching. And for most of us, this is our second job, so we don't really want to incur another expense of having to pay rent, the hassle, and not to mention paying self-employment tax if we collect any kind of a fee. I've taught at 6 different places during my tenure as a fitness instructor and have never had to provide this or pay a fee to rent at a place to teach. I'm not sure if this was fully decided upon yet, but if it hasn't been, I'd like to propose something different. If the city charges a monthly fee to use these 2 rooms, the yoga room and then the room that has the equipment, for example, if they charge $30 a fee for a member, I know that the participants that were taking my classes at the Y would gladly pay that fee. Why not hire instructors as a rec assistant instead of having to charge them rent? Or create a new job class as a fitness instructor and pay us approximately $18 to $20 an hour to teach the class. I know that there's a few of us that have had former participants asking us where and when we will be teaching again, and this could be a really good opportunity for the city to perhaps make some money. This would help add new members to the facility. We could check our own participants into our classes so another rec assistant wouldn't have to be hired to fill that time. We could just check our own people in when we have our classes, so you don't have to sit and pay another person just to punch a card. And say if we had 4 classes a week and you paid instructors to teach these classes at an hourly rate of $18 an hour, and you had approximately 25 members a month and charged them $30 a month, the total monthly rate to pay instructors would be $288 a month. The membership fees, based on the 25 members a month at $30 a month, brings in about $600 a month, and that leaves $312 a month left over to cover liability expenses, advertising, or whatever else might be incurred with something like this. I used to have 3 different classes at the Y with approximately 16 to 20 different members in these classes. And another instructor who's here tonight, Lisa Callister, she had other classes there as well with 15 to 20 different members taking her classes. These were different members than from what I took, than what took my class, because her classes were all at different times. I was in the morning, she was in the afternoon. This is a total monthly membership of approximately 31 to 40 people with just the classes that we taught. So if this doesn't include any yoga instructors or their classes, which would perhaps bring in even more members. And if you plan to have members that are paying to use the room with the equipment room, I assume you would have to have liability insurance for that room. Why couldn't instructors be covered under the same insurance as this? If the room with the equipment used a key fob type tool, similar to what Anytime Fitness or what 365 Fitness in Evelyn has, you could have participants sign a waiver similar to what they have for liability purposes and then not have to staff that room either for that equipment room. If it's a hockey program issue wanting to use the yoga room or equipment room in addition to their dry land room, why can't these rooms be shared? For example, we could run fitness classes between the hours of 7 and 3 and not conflict with any of the hockey schedule because these kids would be in school during these hours, or schedule perhaps evening classes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the fitness instructors, and then maybe Tuesday and Thursday for hockey use, or vice versa. If the hockey program doesn't want to use these rooms, it would certainly be a waste of money and time for these rooms to go unused, and it would sure be a shame. When this building was proposed to the residents of the city of Virginia, it was sold as a community building, in addition to the hockey program and its facilities. We were told it would have this great walking track, fitness rooms, equipment, studios, all this great stuff. We were super excited about it. And we're already paying for it. So shouldn't we be able to use it? We're not trying to take anything away from the hockey program, but instead use it to its full capacity as a community building as it was sold to us. I'm truly hoping that you'll take into consideration another proposal on the use of these rooms without adding additional costs to us instructors. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mary Beth. If you would just stay here for one moment, would you please?
Yeah.
We may have some questions and comments from the council, which I assume we will. First, Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for coming in tonight. And that's been my point about sharing the rooms and what happens between 7 and 3, 9 months out of the year. So I really appreciate you coming in. And just one of the things, just so you're aware, when you look at your costs per hour as an employee, it's a little bit more complicated because there's more costs, it's employment, things that I'm learning all about. And so, but I appreciate the different thinking that you brought forward to us. And I think it hasn't been decided how we're going to be using those rooms yet. People have said it has been, but that vote has not happened in this room yet. So we are still looking at it. And I am definitely going to be supporting utilizing it more than us exclusive user group. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Anyone else? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it because we as a council met, we went and toured those rooms and tried to understand the best utilization of that space, and also trying to be mindful of the Y closing and disenfranchising many different people in the Quad City and around. So I love where you guys are going with their thought process. I know there has been discussion with the hockey group about some exclusivity, but I feel like we really should warrant more conversation about, this is a community facility, total users, and take all of those user groups into consideration. I'm very curious as to if we did have a discussion going forward, how that would work with your thought process as a rec assistant, because that is a revolving door for the city, and I would like to maybe expound on that a little bit more, maybe pick your brains a little bit more on what that might look like, because that is a need that the city does in fact have. And I think it's a little bit maybe more seasonal. Summertime might be a little slower, but I really appreciate you coming forward and bringing this kind of this new idea or thought process to best utilize those spaces. So I want to say thank you for that, and if and when we have the opportunity to have another discussion, I would like to have you and Lisa both invited. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think what we'd like to do is if you could leave your name with Pam Levine, our city clerk, and then when we have another meeting to discuss what the final agreement's going to be or how we're going to work this out, we're still working through gravitating through the process, that you should be able to have a voice as well as Lisa and others with respect to how these rooms are being utilized. So if after the meeting, or if you could give Pam a call, I can give you a number to call, 218-749-3579. We'll write it down for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we'll write it down for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Here we go. Once again, Pam, being our city clerk, 218-749-3579. And we'll make sure you're notified when we have these discussions.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for coming in. Okay, anyone else? Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. And thank you for coming in also. I know we've talked about it, but we hadn't come to any real conclusion on it. So I appreciate that the public is aware of what's going on and comes forward with some new ideas. And I would love to also work with different groups that want to utilize that space. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak? Please come forward at this time. Well, let's have this gentleman here in the back. Please come forward. Then Mike, we'll have you next. Thank you very much. Sir, would you please state your name for the record, and welcome to the City Council meeting.
Name is Carl Hunt, and we moved to Virginia last fall. We're excited about the YMCA to the point where we bought annual membership 6 weeks before it closed. We were also excited about using the event center, and we walked there regularly last winter, and we saw the equipment arrive. Where in the world does the management of the event center stand on this, or are they allowed to stand? Are they in favor of some sort of recreational use of the building?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have our Park and Rec Director, who is Brian Silber, the Facilities Manager, who is Jim Hunt, and then we have the Event Coordinator, Jen Mogensen, and the Marketing Director, Vanessa Little, all work out of that office along with our recreation assistants. And yes, that staff has brought forward the ideas moving forward on how that can be utilized and how we can generate, enough revenue in order to maintain the integrity of the operation of that facility. And so we're still working through that. But yes, it's a recreational opportunity. It could be used by anybody in the general public, and we still have got to figure out after the YMCA closed how we're going to work that. And tomorrow at, I think it's 1 o'clock at the Natural Harvest Foods, there's another meeting on how, we can help salvage the YMCA at the same time, working together on some of the issues with the Iron Trail Memorial Event Center and the fitness program.
I see them producing revenue with shows and concerts and so on. It seems to me that this could be a revenue producer.
Yes, thank you very much for coming in, Mr. Hunt. I think we just have to figure this out. How we're going to make it affordable for everyone in this community to have the opportunity to work out there and use that facility, because it's the community building. It should be used for the community. So thanks for coming in, Mr. Hunt. Anyone else? Councilor Bearable, you have a comment?
I will have it if we continue on this subject, but if we go to a different subject, I need to get my comments in prior to that. But if there's more that want to speak on this issue, fine, let them go first.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bearable, if you could hold your comments and questions until anyone else in the audience like to speak. Councilor Bearable.
Okay, there's a couple things with this recreational stuff. We need to put together a meeting between city and potential users of those rooms in that ITMEC. Reason being, once we put individuals on there as employees, there's a lot of other tremendous expenses that the city incurs with full-time employees. We can put people on for 67 shifts without going to some type of status with unions and other things. There's union issues in there. There's insurance issues also. We can't insure individuals that are not part of the city process, as far as I'm concerned, unless they get injured, then that's a different story in there. But we cannot insure them for liability and other things if they're not an employee of the city. And Brian, I believe I am correct on that? They have to be an employee before we can insure them as for liability and other things, unless they get injured?
Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. Council Bearable, that's correct. What would follow employment with the city is agency and then coverage by our league policy.
Okay. Now, another misnomer is that the money and revenue generated, most of it's being generated by sales tax, not events at this point, but although we've had a lot of good, very good events. The events pay for the employee salaries and stuff. The sales tax cannot pay for any employee expenses. It's strictly the way it was passed at the state level is for the building itself, repairs to it, additions to it, et cetera. That money cannot be used for employee expenses. That's part of the process when that sales tax was passed. Just for everybody to be aware of that. You may not have been aware of that. So we have to generate enough money out of that building to pay for employee expenses, or we're trying to. May not always happen, we're going to try to. I don't have any problem if we set up some type of meetings and stuff, see what we can do and further upgrade and let the citizens, it's not just Virginia's building. We focused it as a regional building when we got that passed. Because we get a lot of revenue out of the region for all this expense and stuff, especially the building expense. That comes from all over there in range, because that's part of that sales tax. So just to give you a couple of updates, but I have no problem if we set up some type of meeting between our recreational people, our city administration, and folks that want to do something, Mary Beth, like you suggested. And I've known you for a long time, so I know you follow through on your stuff. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. From start to finish, the stakeholders were involved in this process. They're community members. Those stakeholders continue to have a voice, and we're going to have this meeting, try to figure this out, and you'll continue to have a voice in how we make our decisions moving forward, and your input is very valuable, so thanks for coming in. Councillor Johnson, and then move on to item 6 on the agenda. Councillor Johnson.
Mr. Hunt, just to clarify, the city is the manager of that building. There is not an independent company that is managing the recreational stuff there. It is all the directive of the city council through our Parks and Rec director. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that there isn't an independent company. It's all, the decisions are made in this room, and then we support the staff in what they're doing. And based on what you said, Mayor, I would like to make sure that we are then not making any decisions about the use of the dryland room being exclusive to the hockey until this meeting that you proposed happens. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think we even mentioned doing that, so. I don't think that even came up there, Councillor Johnson. We haven't made a decision on any of those things yet, so we will get there. We'll make the decisions so it doesn't have an adverse effect on the committee. I know where you stand on this issue, and we'll continue to work through it. So let's move to item 5 on the agenda, which is a consent agenda. The following items will be enacted by one motion unless a councilor or a citizen of the city of Virginia requests that the item be considered separately. Item 5.1 is the approval and corrections of the minutes of the regular meeting that was held on August 8th, 2022, and the special meeting that was held on August 11th, 2022. Item 5.2 is the adoption of Finance Resolution Number 22-016, the schedule of bills. Item 5.3 is to adopt a resolution for the final pay estimate number 19 to Kraus Anderson for the Ewens Field project in the amount of $67,447. Item 5.4 is approved to block the area requested for the fire department open house which is on Tuesday, October 11th, 2022, from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Item 5.5 is approve the following travel requests. Item 5.5A, Jennifer Kinney from the Police Department and Administration to attend the 2022 Bureau of Criminal Apprehension Criminal Justice Conference, September 26th through the 28th, 2022 in St. Cloud at a cost of $555. Item 5.5B, Lieutenant John Swenson of the Police Department to attend the What You Do Matters meeting on September 22nd, 2022 in Duluth, Minnesota at a cost of $119. In item 5.5C, Lieutenant John Swenson, Cassie Fink, and Noah Berg, all police officers, to attend the Phil Chalmers Counter Homicide Training on October 14th, 2022 in Duluth at a cost of $149 each. Item 5.6 is approve the following license applications for the Food Truck Festival. Item 5.6A, Melissa Rabas, doing business as Sugarlicious and More, LLC. Item 5.6B, Sean Bludgeon, doing business as Big Red Wagon. Item 5.6C, Cole Tran, doing business as the Saigon Cafe. Item 5.6D, Larry Lanska, doing business as the Colonel's Best Kettle Corn. Item 5.6E, Steve Elliott, doing business as Becky's Oriental Foods. And item 5.6F, David Capanoli, doing business as Cappy's Kettle Corn. These are the consent agenda items. Looking for council action.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as it's been documented.
Councilor Freely moves to approve the consent agenda. Is there support? Support by Councilor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 6, appearances. Item 6.1, Mohammed Mike Warwas and Marcus Harkis. Is that correct? Is that the correct spelling or pronunciation? Marcus Harkis? Different guy? You're a different guy? So you're coming on behalf of Marcus? You're just with, okay. Concerns regarding the proposed ordinance, Chapter 10, Section 10.38, which is the moratorium on the sale of hemp-derived THC food and beverage in the city of Virginia, Minnesota. Once again, welcome, Mike, and if you can get up to the microphone, thank you, Mr. Kingsley, you helped Mike out there, and welcome again, once again, to the council meeting. If you just state your name for the record.
Mohammed Mike Waswas. And I want to, excuse me.
Good evening.
Good evening to everybody. So I'm here to express my opinion about the proposed moratorium by the City Council. I feel that this is going to hurt my store economically a lot, and it's benefited the state and the city greatly with sales taxes. My store has paid $100-some thousand in sales tax since I opened, and it's benefited our customers greatly, especially those that have extreme pain and PTSD and other ailments. And we know what prohibition does in our country. We saw what it did in the 1920s and 30s. And, earlier when we did the Pledge of Allegiance, I teared up a little bit because it reminded me when I was in elementary school, when I was a kid. We used to do that. And in the Pledge of Allegiance, it talks about liberty. And we should not punish adults that are of legal age to use something that will benefit them, of course, in moderation. And I feel, I was hoping that the city could at least think about grandfathering my store in, or any other store that's had it for the last 2 years. I know that in Columbia Heights, I'm sure you know where Columbia Heights is in the Twin Cities, they grandfathered in the stores that already had it. I know I just got a call from my brother that White Bear Lake extended their thing 1 month so they could discuss it more. And I understand that the city is concerned, the chief, with, drivers and the health of the community. But we've had it now for 1.5 years, and all I've seen is positives, from the customers and from the tax revenue that it's benefited the state and the city. Thank you for letting me speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I have a question for you, if I may. So are you currently selling the edibles at your store, have been for a period of time?
For a year and a half.
So you've been
Yes.
selling these edibles for a year and a half?
Yes, because it's legal under the Farm Bill, under the hemp 2018 when Donald Trump was president.
Yeah, the Farm Bill passed in 2018, which authorized that, correct?
Yes, and we've had it the whole time, and it's been amazing revenue for taxes and for our store. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments from the council? Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming again and speaking to the council. I appreciate that. I have a question for you. With the 2018 bill, so the way it was explained, and I don't know if the chief explained it this way, but the way that I understood it was that this recently passed by the Minnesota State Legislature, and it was actually like almost accidentally passed, or it wasn't, they were unaware that it was in a bill that was passed. So is that correct?
I'm not familiar
For the
with,
state of Minnesota, not the federal?
yep, I'm not familiar with when the state passed it, that some of the legislatures didn't know that it was in the bill. But I do know that ever since, I've been open now for about a year and a half. Yeah, about a year and a half. We've had it from the very beginning. And all our products have the scan codes on them that shows they're 0.3% or less, which is what is allowed under the Farm Bill in 2018. The products that we've had are very mild, and they benefited our customers and our community greatly, and also the state and the city regarding tax revenue.
That partially answers my question. I'm just trying to understand of when the state law went into effect, and I think, does the federal law would trump state law trumps federal law?
State law can't be more lenient.
Be
but
more
they-
strict.
But they can be more strict. Is that correct, Mr. Lindsay?
Thank you, Mayor. That is correct. The
should have
the
directed
state can
this
always
question.
be more restrictive than the federal government, but not vice versa.
So maybe you would have the answer to when this actually passed in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, I was just taking a look at it, Mayor, if I may.
Please, Brian.
So what the 2018 Farm Bill did was it changed the definition of marijuana. And it's certain things that are below 0.3% or and don't, just briefly looked at it. And the new change in Minnesota, I believe, is like 0.5%. So it touches a little bit different. It's the same types of products, just different amounts.
And do we have a time frame then when that was passed?
June 2nd, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz signed House File 4065 into law.
So it should it have been legally sold prior to that? In the state of Minnesota?
We did not have an ordinance back then, and the state didn't have a law back then, so we follow federal law. Is that correct?
In the absence of a law?
I don't want to issue a
Sorry to
formal.
put
I
you
don't
on the
want
hot
to.
spot.
I don't want to issue a formal opinion on it because it depends specifically on the types of products, and I would have to look at Minnesota state law a little bit more closely before I could issue an opinion.
Okay,
But that's something I could do.
I appreciate that, Brian, and it goes to my curiosity as to when the laws were enacted and how we are following them, and the reason that we are considering this moratorium is based on the recommendation from our police chief, Nicole Mattson. And there has been several concerns regarding safety, community safety, and so forth, so.
And I want to respond to that. Okay, so we're an adult store, and as far as I know, the products that we've had have not affected our community, in my opinion. I mean, unless, I don't have the hospital records, or I don't have the driving records. I'm sure the chief would know more about that. But our product is very safe. It's approved, under the Farm Bill, and I feel that it's benefited our community greatly for those who want to use it, 21 and older.
And I appreciate you being here, and I'm hearing and listening to what you're saying. I think for me, just putting a pause on this to let let the state figure it out, or Virginia, the city of Virginia figure it out, makes a little bit of sense to me, but unbeknownst to me, or probably, I would say most of us, I was unaware that it was already being sold in the community of Virginia.
For several years, I mean, in Duluth, all over the state, ever since the bill went through in 2018, maybe a few months later, the companies came out with the legal product and the stores have had them. Probably more like 2.5 years for I've only been in Virginia for 1.5 years, but if a moratorium has already been decided, I would ask that if you could come up with your regulations, as soon as possible, I'm looking out for the well-being of my small business.
Sure, and I totally appreciate that. So thank you for coming again, I appreciate that.
Thank you for everyone. Thank you.
And Mr. Orris, we'll go to Councilor Johnson in just 1 second, but I have a question for you. So the law was passed, and so you sell edibles and liquid form as well, correct?
We have edibles, and we had the ones that you inhale, like an e-cigarette, for example.
Correct.
And that would be in a liquid form in there, yes, you're
Yes,
right.
that'd be the inhaler and liquid, yeah, but not the smoking device. So the Farm Bill passed the edibles and the vaping, but not the smoking of it, because it's still federally against the federal law to smoke the marijuana. But the edibles and that vaping, the liquid form, was passed in the Farm Bill in 2018.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Johnson.
I guess my question is what the difference between CBD and the THC? What, are we splitting hairs with definitions?
No,
at this
no,
point?
so CBD has no psychoactive, okay, where the stuff from the hemp, like the edibles and stuff, does have a psychoactive. But the state lowered it to 5 milligrams, which is very, very, very mild. So CBD has no psychoactive, while the other stuff from the hemp does have a psychoactive. And it's going to be better for the pain relief. It's going to be more effective.
I appreciate that clarification. And I too, like I said last time, I'm supporting this just so we can get our arms around it, and I would hope that it will not take a year, because I do recognize the revenue it's generating for the city and the extra 1% and all that. So I would hope that we put this at the top of our list of getting figured out with the league and making sure that we can do this. But I am also curious about the grandfathering and that. This was an ordinance put together very quickly to help our police department. But I appreciate you bringing in the information very much.
And we do support our police department. I mean that sincerely, and I understand your concerns. Thank you very much, and good evening to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. Anybody else?
Haven't stayed there yet, Larry.
Pardon?
Have Mike stay there yet.
Okay, Mike, could you just hold on for 1 moment, please? Do we have somebody else that wants to speak?
I do, of course.
I couldn't see your light. Councilor
Oh, I'm
Bearable.
sorry, yeah.
Councilor Bearable.
Gary's screen was in the way. I am not set to go forward with this, and I'm going to give you a disclosure. I've been a pharmacist, retired now. I was a pharmacist for 40 years. And we went through all this stuff. We went through not only this, but we went through the stimulant stuff, and we put an ordinance out against stimulant stuff. I am not satisfied the way that state law was passed. It's too vague. There's not enough they're talking about going back to amending this. My question is, Mike, how much milligrams are in the federally allowed law? Because I did not know about that being passed, the federal law. How many milligrams are there?
So,
Are they 5 to 20? What are they?
so in the federal law, it's 0.3%. See, I'm not a scientist. I don't know how they measure it. I'm more of a historian. I like history. So I don't know how they measure it, but it has to be 0.3% or less from the hemp plant in order for it to be legal. And all our products had scan codes on them from the companies, okay, that showed the testing and how they came up with that.
But who's regulating those testing? Who's regulating, the companies themselves?
Yes.
Then that's not an adequate regulated percentage base. You need to have independent verification of what's in there, because 0.3% can mean anything. It could be 5 milligrams, it could be 20 milligrams, it could be anything, depending on the concentration that's in the original product. So I have a concern in that direction. We have no mechanism for testing people that might take a dose here, an hour later take a dose here, 2 hours later take another dose.
What is that? Sir,
That increases the amount of medication in their system where they may not be safe to drive. That's where I'm at it. Okay? Because it accumulates. I'm a scientist by profession, okay? So I know about these things. It can accumulate in your system and be there. So you don't know what percentage is in that individual without testing.
If you want to talk about science and driving, Colorado, their driving fatalities went down since they legalized. And the state of Minnesota, stores have been selling this for the last 2 years. I haven't seen any increase, God forbid, of course, in fatalities or anything on our state roads. Mr. Burr, I want to thank you you're the first one that I spoke to when you invited me last time. But you being a pharmacist for 40 years, you know what OxyContin and hydrocodone and that stuff did to our people, to our community. We had over 100,000 deaths last year, okay, from those pharmaceuticals, from fentanyl, but the people would take the pharmaceuticals in the years past. Okay, and yet the stuff that we have that's derived from hemp does not kill people. Even if they ate the whole jar of gummies, the most they're going to do is fall asleep in their home. Okay, so, I mean, and you used the word stimulant earlier. Okay, I know what stimulants we have a problem with in the city of Virginia, and you cannot compare something from the hemp plant to those very dangerous substances, the stimulants that you would be speaking of, in my opinion, so.
You just made my point, though. You said that if they take too much, they fall asleep in their home. So what happens if you take too much and they're out on the road? Colorado, I have experience. I have friends that live out there in small communities. They've been devastated by all the usage out there. Most of them are leaving, or a lot of them are leaving and going to other states and other places where they don't have that problem with crime and the other things that this has occurred. So I think we need to sit on this for a while, take a good hard look at it, wait until the state legislature reconvenes, because they have already said they don't have a specific thing. They're going to amend that law that passed, because that law was not specific at all. And it needs to get specific. That's all I'm saying. I'm not totally against it, but I have a gut feeling that this is not good for this community. We have enough drug issues in this community as it is now. And that's a drug. I don't care what you tell me. That's a drug.
Well, I understand that, Mr. Brewer, but the drugs were given to us for pain. For every illness, there's a cure, okay? And for some people that have arthritis or other ailments, the hemp plant is a godsend to them. And people that I have spasticity, so my legs kick at night uncontrollably. And if I take something from the hemp plant, it calms my legs down and it helps me sleep. And then I wake up the next morning and I go to work and I function just fine. But I've heard your point of view. I understand your concern, sir. I want to thank you. I want to thank the council. And I hope I didn't ramble on or anything. Pardon me. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay, thank you, Mike. I'd just like to make one more comment. I think the law was passed, and I made some telephone calls over the course of the last week with some talking to some legislators about the purpose and the goal and objective of this. And it really, the reason, even though it was passed accidentally, the goal and objective in the discussions at committee level was that it was supposed to be for medicinal purposes. You know, we didn't pass the smoking of marijuana in the state of Minnesota like they do in other states. They passed this as a medicinal option for those who, have anxiety or whatever the list of issues are. So we just need to figure this out. We do have, we're going to act on that probably tonight. But, the moratorium that we're asking for, I mean, we just need to get some answers from a legal perspective, from our law enforcement, zoning issues and those kind of things. But I think we do need to talk about how this affects you and anybody else who's selling these edibles who have been selling them since 2018. So I think we have to have you as part of that conversation as well. Thank you, Mike. Councilor Friedlieb.
I just want to weigh in lightly, if
Please
I may,
do.
on this issue. I agree, Mike. I think, the 1-year moratorium is, we're trying to grab the reins of a horse that's already heading out of the barn, as far as I'm concerned, within the state. I did some research within my own extended family to talk to people about whether or not they've tried these products. All of them are older than I am. I'm 65 years old, so all three of the people that responded to me are older than I am. One was diagnosed with fibromyalgia going on 2 decades ago. For an extended period of time was taking tramadol and then switched to gabapentin. Since trying these gummies, she's found miraculous pain relief from the gummies. Another was suffering from insomnia for many, many years, and mentioned Sominex, Silenor, Ambien, Doxepine, Nortriptyline. All of those things were prescribed to them over the course of these decades. And since trying the gummies, they're now sleeping better than they ever have. Also, for anxiety and depression, people in my family have been prescribed Prozac, Wellbutrin, Effexor, Lexapro, etc. And again, these people have said since trying these gummies, they're feeling a lot more relaxed than they ever have. So, I mean, Charlie knows a heck of a lot more than I do from the pharmacological side, and he has legitimate and significant concerns, as does, from law enforcement. I did, when I spoke to our chief after she gave us our presentation, I told her that I didn't really have much to say because I kind of had stars in my eyes about the whole 1% sales tax and this new, potentially very popular product that would be a significant revenue for our city, potentially. So I guess, I'm of the mind that, there's 18 states already that have, passed, both medical and recreational marijuana. And not that I'm an advocate for any of that, but I am starting to believe that these products do in fact have legitimate use in our society right now, and particularly for people who have for many years not found relief from pharmacological interventions. And so I'm still in favor of us taking some time to reflect and review on what we're going to try to attempt to do in this city. But I think a year is a little bit heavy-handed at this point in time, given some of the information that I've been provided.
Thank you, Councilor Freely. Mike, thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. We'll move to item 6.2 on the agenda, which is Matt Specht from MCCA Property Management, located at 215 Chestnut Street. Concerns regarding the licensing agreement that's proposed with the American Legion, Post 239. Matt, would you please turn on the green light and announce your name for the record, and welcome to the City Council meeting.
First of all, thank you so much for allowing me the time to speak to you all tonight. My name is Matt Specht, S-P-E-C-H-T, and I represent MCCA Property Management. I'm the owner of that company. We purchased a distressed property on Chestnut Street back in 2016, 215 Chestnut Street. It was the old Winks bar. We worked with the city, with AEOA. We dumped hundreds of thousands of dollars into this building to renovate it from the basement all the way up to the top floor. Since that time, 2016, Up North Dental has been the tenant of that building. And all of the employees for Up North Dental have parked in this city lot next to the American Legion. And so about a month ago, we started getting, or the employees of Up North Dental started getting notes on their cars and people coming and telling them that they couldn't park in that lot, that the lot was owned by the American Legion, which clearly is not the case, yet at least. We don't have all the information, but I have concerns over if the American Legion is going to take over that lot. Where are all the other employees of all the other businesses on that block going to park? We have a tar lot, another city tar lot right behind, but it's 2-hour parking and or permit parking. And so I guess my question as a taxpayer and a business owner on Main Street is, where do my people park? If you guys are going to give out lots for $1 a year, I'll take 50 of them right now. I just don't think that it's, and I don't know that that's the case. We've been told that this license agreement is going to provide them that lot for $1 a year. I don't know if that's correct, but if it is, I have a serious problem with that. Because essentially what you're telling all the businesses on that block is, you buy a business, you renovate the building, you pay taxes, and your employees have to pay to park, while some guy that wants to go take 2 whiskey sours and a beer gets free parking from the city. And I don't think that's right. And I think you all should think about that before we move on this. If in fact, the license agreement is $1 a year, I was over there the other day, you probably fit about 20 cars in that lot. We've been told the lot in behind, if we do permits, $100 a car per year. So, do the math. If we can fit 20 cars in there, then the lease should be $2,000 a year. Otherwise, and listen, I have no problem with the American Legion. Thank you for your service, all of you. What I have a problem with is taking a public lot away from us and utilizing it for one single business. When we have, people that need to park their car somewhere, we can't park on the street, that's 2 hours. We can't park in the back lot, that's 2 hours. Or we have to do a permit. Now, if we're giving this lot away for $1 a year, I'll take 7 spots in the permitted lot in the back for $7 this year, if you'll take that. Or I'll take the lot that you're giving them for $1, and I'll give you $500 for it right now. So I just want some feedback from you guys on what exactly this licensing agreement is, how we got to this point without asking any of the other businesses on this block. We've talked to people from the restaurant on the corner, from the Virginia Surplus. There are a lot of businesses whose employees park in this lot. And so the American Legion has told us, oh, well, we'll be neighborly and we'll let you park there. Well, I'm a lawyer too. And I don't ever trust that statement. Because a month from now, whatever happens, then all of a sudden we're already being told we can't park there by them. They're coning the lot off. They're flagging it out. They're harassing employees that work at Up North Dental. So if you think that they're going to allow people to park there after this, I doubt it. I doubt it. And I want to understand more what the licensing agreement is, how we got to this point, how much it's being paid for those spots. And then I guess we'll go from there. My biggest concern, again, the American Legion is beside the point to me. I need a place for my tenants in that building to park at a reasonable price. That lot has always been there since 2016. We've never had any issues before this year.
Okay, thank you, Matt. If you just hold of it, we have some other councilors that want to speak, but just to clarify a little bit, we did approve at the last Tuesday's Committee of the Whole meeting a licensing agreement for $1 a year for the American Legion to utilize that space, but it's not intended to use it for parking. The goal and objective of this licensing agreement is for that to be utilized in some other fashion. In other words, using it as a patio, for extending their services and those kind of things. It's not a parking lot. And with leasing that property or licensing that property isn't for the purpose of parking. It's a purpose of expanding their business moving forward, whether they're cooking burgers out there, whether they have a patio, or the case may be. Because the ordinance says in order for that to be a parking lot, legally, it has to be paved or has to have some bituminous on it. And so there's a lot of things that have to go with that license agreement that have to be complied with. It's not, the goal and objective is not, and the intent is not to issue a license for the purpose of allowing parking spots there.
So what are the restrictions on that license? So if I want to put a tent up out in that parking lot, if I'm the American Legion and I want to put a tent up in that parking lot 365 days a year so nobody can use it, does that fall under the license?
Well, it would, and I think I'm going to ask our city attorney, Brian Lindsay, to kind of go through that a little bit. Brian?
Okay.
So I'll start by saying that a copy of the lease is in the agenda packet for this evening and was in a copy of the lease, or the license agreement was contained within the agenda materials for the Committee of the Whole last Tuesday. And so that the actual license agreement has been made public. And the mayor's correct. So the purpose of the license agreement is to expand a service area and does require compensation to the city of $1 a year. But in addition to that, the American Legion is going to be required to upkeep that lot and make sure that the maintenance is performed. And there are insurance and other requirements that follow their use of that lot.
And I think, just to expand a little bit, is that it can't just be used as a parking lot. It has to be some improvement there for services rendered. So,
There should be no, even with the American Legion, there should be no cars on that lot ever then.
there should be no parking.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
So, but let's continue the discussion here. Counselor Johnson had his light on first. Counselor Johnson, and then we'll move on to Counselor Bearable and others who may want to weigh in. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Had no clue that anybody was parking there regularly. I mean, you drive down the street, there's always cars in there, always, always, always.
Every day it's
And then
full.
during the car show, during the festival, food truck festival, they always put out a tent, and it's always where I go because it's the shortest line. The license specifically says parking lot and temporary seating area. So I'm now confused as to exactly what we're agreeing to. So you coming in today definitely changes how I'm looking at this. Because if it's being used for parking, it should be the same parking rules that everywhere else. Either it's a 2-hour parking, or you can pay for a city as in the back. You know, I'm dumbfounded. I don't know what else to say or ask at this point, other than, you know, I think we need to look at this more. It's not as cut and dried as it was brought forward to us in a piece of cake. Especially since there are numerous businesses that are utilizing it, and we should make sure we're
And
being
like I said,
fair.
and thank you, Counselor. If you guys opened up the back lot to just city parking without it being 2 hour, I mean, that's the problem, is when people are coming and working a 9-hour shift and it's just 2-hour parking in the front, it's 2-hour parking in the back. They can't, they're dentists and hygienists. They can't run out every 2 hours, drive their car around the block and park it in a different spot. It's just not feasible
And
to
I
do that.
appreciate you coming with this, because before the pandemic, we had really talked about we need to do a parking study. And we put it off because the county built this nice fancy building over here, and this is a free-for-all parking lot here, and it's free-for-all over there. So there's 2 free lots that we're supposed to alleviate parking, and it has a little bit on the street. But I think that's where I'm at, is, okay, let's look at the necessity of 2-hour parking and where it should be. Let's look at what our businesses' needs are, all of them, because it's not just a challenge on that block. It's a challenge for folks that are all over. You know, there's a 2-hour lot out here, and if you forget your city tag as in one of our meetings, we get a ticket, you know, so which is fair. So I think that this definitely warrants some actual planning and thought moving forward. And I can see this having the ability to work together, having the VFW be able to use part of that space and part of its parking. I think there's a solution that's very amicable to everybody. Thank you.
And, you know, to piggyback on that, again, we don't oppose events that the American Legion wants to have in that parking lot, but on the days that there's not an event there, you should be able to still park in that lot. Even when there is an event, you know, cordon off half of the lot and put your tent up and allow the cars to still park in there. But to take the whole lot for that block is crazy to me, when there's multiple businesses, and more businesses coming in, one across the street from us soon, that will have a lot of parking needs as well. I just appreciate all your time, and you know, I've voiced my concerns, and I hope that you guys will take that into consideration before making any action or taking any action on this.
Yeah, thank you. We will be taking action on this under committee reports under 9.1G. So if you're willing to hang on for a little bit, we'll be talking about that as well. There are others that want to speak. First, we'll go to Councilor Beyondich, and then over to Councilor Baraboo. Councilor Beyondich?
Thank you. And I can appreciate the parking where I am employed. I was not able to park. So I did park behind in the 2-hour lot with the intent of moving in 2 hours, and time got away, and I did receive a ticket, which I am happy to pay. But at that time, the lot that I was parked in had 2 cars. And I think we really need to look at some of our parking areas because we don't have the retail that we once had. Those were set up when this Main Street was full of retail business. We no longer have all of that. And all of these lots, that when I pulled in at 8 o'clock in the morning, that lot was empty. So I set my timer and I couldn't get away from work, and at noon I went out and there was one other car out there with me. So to have a lot that nobody parks in because of that time constraint, I think is very wasteful. When we have employees, we have a more business, not so much retail business, but other business down there where people are coming. I think we have to look at our parking situation in town.
And I agree 100%. Most times when I come by that back lot, there's 1 or 2 cars in this enormous lot. The one row that is reserved for permit parking, I'll add too, that you can get quite a few cars in there, but in the winter, half of that disappears because that's where the city dumps all their snow from the alleyways and stuff. So then in the winter, it becomes even more of a critical situation because now we've gone from 10 spots, permitted spots, down to about 4 or 5.
Right. So I feel your frustration. I've been bit by the parking monitor a few times, but I park there knowing that can happen. But it's also frustrating when I go out there and there's very few cars parked there. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Baraboo, you have a comment?
Yes, I do. Let's go back a little bit in history on why there's 2-hour parking, okay? I was chairman of Street and Alleys when that went into effect. We had employees parking on a main street, never moving their cars, never rotating, never paying their tickets. So we went to 2-hour parking. This lot is free out here. We can make all the lots in town free. You guys from Winks, that lot that only has 2 cars in, that's a hop, skip, and jump walk for you guys. Park there. And we'll get rid of we can get rid of the 2-hour limitation on these lots. I advocated for that a long time ago, but it
That would
never happened.
that would make us happy.
But we have to have certain areas in the city. Main Street has to have limits,
Totally understand.
because otherwise people can't get to the business, because we had employees parking there all day long, rotate their cars 1 space,
Yep,
and they sit there. So we had to do some stuff, and we had to ticket heavy
completely understand.
to do that. But we've got lots all over the city we can make free, and I don't have a problem with that.
And listen,
Chairman,
that would
but
solve
we need to-
our
but
problem.
We need to set a meeting and change what we're gonna do with these lots. They're right, we need to take a look at it. Again, we've looked at it more than once, and you can't get rid of all of the limit on parking, just like we can't get rid of everyday parking in the wintertime, because we need to plow snow. Summertime, we alleviate that by letting 2 weeks at a time on the same side of the street, wherever you are. So there's a lot of things we need to take a look at. That's all I'm trying to tell you.
And I completely agree with you. I mean, the 2-hour parking on Main Street, to me, it's a no-brainer, just for the reasons you said. You'll have all the employees parking and
But
clogging
we
up
found
Main
out
Street.
people don't want to walk the parking lot behind Wells Fargo there. That's not, you hardly see a car in there. Nobody wants to walk to their place of business on the main street. People are lazy, let's face it. I'm going to say it.
Yeah, you're probably right.
You got more parking behind Grandy's, and that's never, I've been by there just about every day because I use that post office quite often, and I don't see that ever full. And there are some designated spots there, and maybe we have to take a look at that too, because there are designated spots.
Yeah, if we lose the lot next to the American Legion and you open up the lot behind us, I can guarantee you that there'll be 7 Up North Dental cars parked in there every day. Because there's no place else to park
Well, that's a place,
for them.
well, that's a place, since our ordinance says it has to be paved, we'll have to go in and ticket, then that'll be a place, another place besides Main Street, you can,
Right.
you know, if they're parking in there, we'll have to leave that as no parking, it's not an improved lot.
Right.
That's one of our criteria. We have some of those around town, and people park on them. We've got another unimproved lot down that we let NTS and those people at the end of Main Street use their parking on just a gravel lot. So, you know, we need to take a look at it, so we'll get a meeting set up here and we'll invite you.
Perfect.
Mr. Specht, there's a packet right down there. You're welcome to take it. In that packet is the lease. So you take a look at that as we move through the agenda. We'll get down to 9.G if you could, and we'll vet that out. Just quickly, before we go to Councilor Paulson, I don't want to belabor this anymore. I am not a permit parking guy, so I'm hoping we're going to have a meeting so I can express my perspective once again. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor, and I am not a permit parking girl, so it sounds like we have a consensus.
I'm not a free parking person, let's put it that way.
I might challenge you on that.
Go ahead.
Oh, we've had too much trouble over the
Go ahead,
years.
Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate you coming, Matt and CJ, and thank you for what you contribute to downtown and the beautification that you did on the building and all the effort that you put in. I appreciate that.
Thank you to the city, too.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a good partnership. That being said, when this came forward with the lease, the license agreement, I don't think it was, as Counselor Johnson said, as really as cut and dry, and that this, you coming changes the perspective a lot. So I don't know, you know, if the American Legion folks if we want to talk about this a little further when we get down the agenda item, but that really changes things in my perspective in terms of utilization of that spot or that space. And although I drive downtown every day, I don't necessarily drive past there and look, you know, because I would assume you're parking mainly in the back end or toward the back
Wherever
to
there's a
the
spot.
alley or whatever.
Wherever there's a spot.
Okay,
It's
so
pretty
I
much
guess
full every
you
day.
know, you go down, you don't really notice. So to be honest with you, I guess I don't notice that. But this puts things in a little bit different light. And then I would agree that we put off our parking study that we were going to be doing, even with the street closure and directing traffic all around. I mean, it's kind of a crazy, the county doesn't have enough parking. I think we really should do. In my opinion, the county does not have enough parking when they're
Go
parking.
count the spots and the employees, they have enough parking behind their building and in the lot out front and the other places.
Yeah,
They've counted those, it's enough.
Can she?
I'm not going to argue, but the numbers are there.
Yeah, but can she continue with her comments? And then if you'd like to speak it further, you're welcome to
That's
do
no
so.
All on my committee, so.
Yeah, I understand that, but Counselor Paulson has the floor when she's done, and then we can speak. Counselor Paulson, please continue.
You, just so to clarify, there's some congestion going on First Street South, First Street North, Chestnut Street, and all the lots. There is. And then there's lots that aren't being utilized because people can't move their cars every 2 hours. So I think it's time we had a really good, robust conversation about that and invite any of the business owners on all sides, and there's some residential too, and have a good discussion. So I look forward in having that. But I do have to tell you that this kind of changes my perspective on the license agreement altogether. So I appreciate you coming, and I'm sure we'll get to the item G when we're ready. Thank you, Mayor.
We will. Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Bearable, anything else to add?
No, other than, if you go back and look at records, I did recommend many years ago to get rid of all the timed parking in parking lots, okay? Certain areas we can't do that with, it's impossible to do. And we can't have overnight parking in some of these areas because of snow removal too, so there's a couple of issues. It'll fall on my committee, I guarantee you, I will set up a meeting, it'll be after Labor Day, because I'm not gonna do any next week, but it'll be after Labor Day, probably in the month of September.
Appreciate your time, everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Specht, for coming in. Appreciate it. When we get down to 9.1G, I think we'll have some more discussion about this proposed licensing agreement. We'll move on to item 6.3. There's another appearance on the agenda, and that's Mr. Gerald Williams regarding concerns regarding vandalism and criminal damage to property in his neighborhood. I see Mr. Williams is not here today, so we'll contact him at another time. So we'll move on to item number 7, which is unfinished business. Item 7.1, the property at 410 5th Street South. And I'm looking for some information, if you have any, Brian, with respect to the progress related to this property.
Mayor, I can report to the council that all of our paperwork is filed. We do have a court file number that's been assigned to it. That court file number is 69VI CV 22-424. And I'll pass that information along to the council or send an email out. You can use that court file number to track the progress.
Could you repeat that, Court?
Yep, absolutely.
One more time, repeat the court file number?
Yep, it's 69VI-CV-22-424.
Very good. Thank you.
And unfortunately, we have not been assigned a court date for our hearings yet, but all of our papers have been filed, and we are awaiting, and my staff has reached out for an update as recently as 4:10 this afternoon.
And we know that Mr. Tolman has been served notice of this.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Kingsley, anything you'd like to add or comment on?
Last week, before our meeting before the committee of the whole last week. Yeah, on the Minnesota Judicial Branch website, there's an access to public records. And using that court file number, you can pull you can pull a couple things. There's a general, which is called an MPA access, which is essentially a public MNCIS that allows you to take a look at the registers of action for those cases. And then there's also a more thorough access that will allow you to actually pull and read documents. So using that court file number, you can access both of those systems.
In addition to that, Brian, do they still have the public data computer system that's at the clerk's office at St. Louis County? It's an open, you could look up the file number right there on the computer, and if you have any questions, you could ask the people that work for the clerk of court's office, and they will be happy to answer any questions. Is that still available?
It is, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Kingsley, at this point? Okay, thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. So we also have a couple parallel tracks happening, and I just want to get an update on where we are with the request to have an appraisal done. Have we, I guess, found anyone to facilitate the appraisal of that property, of both the front and back alley of the property? The two addresses, 410 and 412? 412?
It's coming down on our agenda here.
So do we have any updates, though, for?
No, not at this time.
Okay, so we'll approve it, then the action step is taken, or when, if and when it gets approved. And then the other question that I had is, where are we at with just the regular communication between you, the city attorney, and the property owner's attorney? Has there been any continual trying to get some communication, so the court action, we don't have to wait for that, they would just allow us onto the property?
Mayor, if I may.
Brian?
The most recent communication that I had with the attorney representing Mr. Toman was that Mr. Toman was not going to allow the inspection, and there was an indication that that there would be a follow-up call to explain why he wasn't going to allow the inspection, and that follow-up call has not occurred.
And was that follow-up call supposed to occur on behalf of from his attorney to you, or from you to his attorney?
His attorney was supposed to initiate the call to me, but I have had contact with his attorney on at least one occasion since then and haven't received an update.
Okay. And is that something, I mean, I'm just trying to exhaust all of our processes and all of our, just so that we've done everything right in this process. So is there some way that you can reach out again, whatever that was, reach out again and request thunder?
Yes, it is.
Oh my gosh. Okay. And request an inspection date or an inspection that they would allow us onto the property for an inspection.
Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. I will reach out again and make a subsequent request and see if they've changed their position.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. Okay, anything else on item number 7.1, the property at 410 Fifth Street South? Okay, move on to the next item of business, 7.2, the clinic lease. You have anything, Britt, further with respect to this?
Nothing new from last time.
Okay, we're still working on the agreement and the issues with respect to the work that has to be done and things of that nature, right? All right, thank you very much. Any questions do anybody have about that? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 7.3, which is the rental code ordinance. And I guess we're getting closer and closer to the first reading, or are we not? We're not. So I would refer to Mr. Sullivan, who's been working diligently with all of us and the commission about this issue. John, could you give us a little update, please?
Sure, thank you, Mayor. There was a public process that occurred. We took that testimony. Now what we're doing is putting together a draft report from the Planning Commission on the results of that, and then formulating a task force to bring it forward. I think the timeline from day one was that this would be brought forward to the city council for consideration sometime in the beginning part of the year, which would be January, so it's not ready yet.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, John. Councilor Beyondich?
Thank you. When you have all that information, the input that comes forward, were we having more public meetings so people could see that revised draft before it comes to the council for approval?
Certainly could.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Okay, anything else on the rental code update? Okay, we'll move to item 8, discussion items. There was an addition of 8.1, 8.2 in your packet. 8.1 is the adopt a resolution to approve the purchase of 10 golf carts from EasyGo in the amount of $69,950. And I think we got an email with respect to that and the availability of those carts immediately. It's a little bit above the budget item as far as budget goes, but I'm going to ask Sherry, you have any information and recommendation with respect to this? I think the golf course was having some trouble with the old ones breaking down and not being able to provide them for those who want to move in the tournaments and things of that nature. So could you give us a little idea of why we're asking to purchase 10 carts?
Yes, Mayor and Council. Oh, Brian's here.
We have Brian Silber, our Park and Rec Director. Thanks, Brian, for coming to the council meeting. I know you've been working your tail off in all the other areas, so thanks for coming tonight. And could you give us a little update and information and justification for this request?
It would be my pleasure to.
Thank you.
Just to update you on golf carts that we have up at the golf course. The city owns 38 golf carts in our fleet of golf carts. Of those golf carts, 2 of them are utilized by the restaurant to do as beverage carts. Two more of them are 4-person golf carts. So those are not utilized by golfers. We then also have 1 additional cart that has a cage on it that is utilized by golf course staff to collect range balls on the driving range. So of the 38 golf carts that we have, 5 of them are not available to golfers. Now, in just some industry standards for golf carts, most golf courses keep golf carts in their fleet in service between 5 and 10 years. The national average is 7 years. We have not purchased any new golf carts since 2018. Golf carts in our fleet are from a 2018 purchase, a 2014 purchase, a 2013 purchase, a 2006 purchase, and a 2003 purchase, and a 1998 purchase. So doing the math, you see that our golf carts are all past what the industry standard would be. Last year, in the budget process, we obtained a quote for budgeting purposes for replacement of the 2003 golf carts. That quote came in at $45,469. Sherry, in her infinite wisdom, said we should budget more because the price will go up. Boy, was she right, but we did not expect the price to go from $45,000 to the quote that we have received now of almost $70,000 for the same 10 golf carts. As far as golf cart prices go, the list price of each individual golf cart, if we were to purchase an individual golf cart, it would be $9,342. Since we are purchasing 10 golf carts or more, we receive a bulk price, bringing the cost of each cart down to $6,995. So by purchasing 10 carts or more, we do receive a nice little price break. I'm trying to think of any of your questions and answer them ahead of time in my
The
little
availability of
presentation.
the carts. Availability.
They also, as of last week, had all 10 carts sitting on their lot, and they are holding them for us until tomorrow based on our decision tonight. If you guys agree to the purchase of those carts, they can deliver them to us and invoice us net 30 for those carts so that we can replace the carts, the 2003 carts. Part of our problem with the 2003 carts is they are struggling to stay functioning. Currently, we have 7 carts down at the Public Works shop to be worked on, and we have 4 other carts that are waiting to go to Public Works, but Public Works just does not have the place to put them as we wait for them to be repaired. The reason our carts have been able to stay in service so long is the outstanding work that our mechanics do. I applaud them for keeping these carts running as long as they have, but these carts from 2003 that we need to take out of service, our mechanics have seen every other week throughout the season and have said they're beyond their use. So it would be our suggestion to put them in a surplus auction here next time the city does a surplus sale.
So final question, then we'll go to Counselor Johnson. Final question is that if we choose not to purchase these carts and we still have to order them when we have our budget meeting on our service and put that on the equipment bound river, what would be the availability or the time frame which we could purchase them if these 10 carts aren't available? Is there a time frame?
I was shocked to find that they had carts available and waiting for us. Most of the lead times are 6 to 9 months for golf carts and most other products.
I did order one, and they told me I won't get it till next spring, so. All right, now, thank you. Counselor Johnson.
I will move the purchase of 10 2023 RXVE FI gas golf carts for $69,950.
Okay, Counselor Johnson moves to approve. Is there support?
Or for discussion.
Support by Counselor Freely for discussion. Further discussion? Counselor Freely.
So Sherry, you said 45,000 wouldn't do it. Did you then budget accordingly to cover the cost of the 69,950?
No, I wasn't aware of the 6990. I budgeted 54,000, so the difference is 16,000, which will come out of the contingency fund.
Leaving us what in the contingency fund?
Right now, we have 75,000 in there. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. Thank you, Sherry. That was very valuable information. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson, then Counselor Baraboo.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, Sherry, I have a question on the contingency fund. Does it roll over every year, or does our budget just absorb that down to a zero balance?
no, this is, we do zero-based budgeting and with the state and our finances. So we start zero every year. the enterprises roll over. So if
Okay.
they carry a deficit, we
Okay,
carry
I
it.
just, I
And it
just
goes in
wanted
the general
clarification on
fund.
that. That's what I thought. Okay, so it will get put back into the general fund if not utilized.
Correct.
Okay. So I have a little issue with this because we've been trying to be creative regarding even like leasing and then the maintenance, it's under warranty, the maintenance is covered. Have we ever explored a lease option with the golf carts?
We did look at lease options. There are some golf courses that lease their entire fleets.
Right.
And with what we spend per golf cart, purchasing them, and then with our maintenance, we end up paying less over time doing the maintenance
Before I
ourselves.
say yes on this, I would like to see that, Brian. I would. I would like to get some quotes from a leasing fleet company. And I mean, delivery time is 6 to 9 months maybe, but we're at the end of our golf season right now. So I guess whenever I hear what's coming out of the contingency, I don't like hearing that. And it just, to me, the golf course is always, I don't know if we're in the red or black this year, but are we in the red?
I haven't had, our accountant hasn't finished up the
Okay.
June, July.
So I know during the COVID, the following year following COVID, that we were doing excellent with our golf
I
sales.
can answer some of those questions for you because I've pulled some of those historic numbers to compare. Our golf course, like the industry standard, has seen a 30% uptick in usage and revenue since COVID came. Looking at budgets in previous years ending on August 31st, in 2019, the golf course had brought in $274,000 at the end of August. In 2020, the golf course had brought in $260,000 at the end of August. Last year in 2021, at the end of August, the golf course had brought in $317,000. This year, currently, we have brought in $301,000. That does not count this week's revenue or next week, so we're halfway through. So
You're tracking pretty good.
we are tracking very good from historical numbers.
And I think I just would have liked to have had, maybe had this at the committee of the whole level first, to be honest with you, just so we could, maybe have that conversation, like, what does a lease look like? And I understand, I don't know, I guess I would have liked to have gone through a little bit more of the years of the usage. And I would rather not do a bond, an equipment bond for a golf cart for $6,900 or a fleet for $69,000. You're going to pay interest on that bond over 10
This wouldn't be a
years.
bond.
We're not going to do a bond.
Well, I mean, as
Outright.
I think you had suggested, there may be a possibility that we were going to be doing an equipment bond
Well, if
down
we-
the road
if
for.
we- Yeah, if we didn't approve this, we would look at
Right,
that in the budget
right. And
process.
so I just wanted to address that part of my
certainly.
concern, financial concern that I have. So I would rather take it a step back and investigate a little bit more options there. So thank you, Mayor.
Sure, you're welcome. It has been moved and supported. Further discussion, Counselor Bearable, and then over to Counselor Beyond.
I'm dead set against holding off on this. If you take a look at where equipment and purchases on mechanical and stuff, they're going up 10% to 20% right now across the board for inflation. And I just bought a bunch of stuff where I priced it a month ago, and I'm paying 15% more for it right now because I didn't buy it back then. $6,900 is what we're going to spend if that inflation takes place. It's crazy not to take this right now and purchase these. The old golf carts, I'm going to bet, Brian, you can't get parts for some of these anymore. Am I on the money?
No, there has
still get
not
parts?
been much of a change in the interior workings of a golf cart. It's well beyond my realm of expertise of small engine repair, but it is the cylinders in the motors that have just about worn out, and it's the physical motors that need to be replaced, which is the bulk of the cost of a golf cart, which is why our mechanics had recommended that we surplus these existing golf carts and replace them with new ones.
Are we going over the scheduled hours that these guys are scheduled to work on these carts? I'm assuming we are right now.
Yes, we have.
Oh, okay. So that's another issue. They can't get the other equipment, and we have equipment on computers that we rotate specific times and stuff to keep them up to date and keep them going. We did that a long time ago, and we're getting 2 years more out of most of our equipment. I can't see holding off on this. We have money besides the contingency fund to pay this extra little bit of money. I'm all for doing this now. Thank you.
Thank you. Gee, $6,900? I paid $89.95 plus tax for the same cart out of Shakopee. Did you have a comment there, Councilor Beyondich, then over to Councilor Johnson? Councilor Beyondich.
Part of it was already answered previously, so I was just going to ask some of the same questions, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Johnson?
I made this motion because I think it's a good idea, but I'd really like us to look at the larger people movers. You had indicated in a previous discussion that the one of our carts that we use for our events is no longer available, which was cause for some challenges this weekend for some commitments we made.
And the reason one of the 4-person carts is not currently available is we had to take a part off of it to put on a cart that we use on a regular basis for the golfers. So that part can be taken back off and that cart can be put into service. For example, this past Saturday, you may not have expected the golf course to have been super busy this past Saturday with everything else that was going on in town. We had the car show downtown. People were preparing for Brewfest that day. But yet on Saturday, we had 220 rounds of golf that were played at our golf course on this Saturday. Now, there were people that walked up that did not have reservations that wanted to golf, and they could have golfed, but we had no carts available for them, so they elected not to golf our golf course because we did not have carts available for them at that time, mainly due to the fact that we have such a large number that are down. In addition, we were not able to meet what our normal commitments are to some of our organizations. We only were able to provide Brewfest 1 4-person cart. Normally, we provide them 2 4-person carts and 2 2-person carts. Sand Lake Shuffle had also asked for the same thing. We were only able to provide them 1 4-person cart. And Friday afternoon, Friday morning, when we discovered that we were short that many carts and the golf course was anticipating a busy day and couldn't be without the carts, I ended up making multiple phone calls to many private individuals that I know that had golf carts, trying to round up some golf carts for these organizations.
Well, thank you for that, Brian. But I would like to ask that we really look at purchasing a 6-person people mover for next year. I think with how busy we've been, with the number of people utilizing our park, Land of the Loon, all those, I would like to see that somehow worked into the Magic budget, Sherry, if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. So Brian, I would like to just add to that real quick before we vote. I know but it's worth discussing. I play in a lot of tournaments in Virginia, whether it's a bar tournament or a tournament where you're raising funds or fundraiser or whatever the case may be, and all those carts are gone. And Steve Fingeros is calling people who own carts that are parked in the barn, can we borrow your cart? We're short on a tournament. And these people have private carts and have been gracious enough to allow us to use them on a regular basis. That shouldn't have to happen. You shouldn't have to be calling all over the place trying to find extra carts. So I think this is appropriate. The 2003s are way beyond their life. So that's all I have. Anybody else have any questions, comments before we vote? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one clarification then on the resolution itself. It states 10 golf carts priced at $6,950 each, and that doesn't reflect what the EasyGo price is. That if you divide $69,950 by 10 carts, it's $6,995.
Right.
Sorry, I probably had a
Price that's on the
typo on
quote.
that.
What now?
Sorry, I probably had a typo on the resolution.
Oh, yeah, so I was just making a notification on that resolution that it should probably state $69.95.
Very good, and you'll make that change on the resolution. Pam, thank you. Okay, it has been moved and supported to purchase these 10 golf carts. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Friedlieb,
Yes.
Paulson,
No.
Yondich, Johnson,
Yes.
Montzelli. Huffy,
Yes.
Baraboo.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you. Okay. Item 8.2, approve the request from the Sabi Range Youth for Christ to block off the 200 block of Fifth Avenue South on September 20th, 2022, from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. for their block party. And this is something they do every year.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I'll move to item 9, committee reports. Item 9.1, the committee of the whole meeting that was held on August 16th, 2022. And we'll turn this portion of our city council meeting over to our city administrator, Britt C. Bennis. Britt?
Thank you. At the Committee of the Whole meeting on August 16th at 9 a.m. here in the City Council chambers, Mr. City Attorney Brian Lindsay gave a little reminder to all of us about the conflict of interest for any mayor and councilor. It was a very good reminder. Thank you, Brian. Matt Reed from SCH, our city engineer of record, provided information regarding the evaluation of the traffic signals on Chestnut Street. We did send out public notice to everybody that downtown, either by email or by mail, to get some more input from them. We did receive 2 written comments. After much discussion, we discussed whether we were going to replace the traffic signals at 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue, 4th Avenue, 5th Avenue, and 6th Avenue. It was moved and supported after discussion to approve the recommendation from SCH for the Chestnut Signal Project, which is replacement of 2nd, 4th, and 6th.
Also move.
Move to approve by Counselor Paulson. Is there support? A support by Counselor Barnzelli. Further discussion? Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Am I reading that the emergency lights on Fourth Avenue, that was some of the, I guess my problem is I don't see exactly what we're doing here as part of the motion. I did swing down by the fire department and talk to the crew that was on duty that day and just asked them what they thought about lights on Fourth Avenue and if it would matter. And the general consensus is it didn't matter. They're gonna, whatever happens on Chestnut and Fourth is gonna happen. So I'm not gonna support the recommendation, that first recommendation, because I think the lights on Fourth Avenue are overkill, and I think we could spend that money better somewhere else when it comes to the improvement downtown.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson, and I know it's been moved and supported for the discussion. I too don't think that we should have the lights even on 6th Avenue. I mean, we've had some comments from the community that it's a difficult intersection because you have an angle that you move forward. So if you had a four-way stop, it makes it go a lot further because it doesn't affect stacking at the 6th Avenue because it's not stacking on Chestnut Street. So I'm not supportive of the 6th Avenue one. I think if 2nd Avenue is important. So I'm not going to vote for the recommendation either of all 3 of these intersections. So I think it votes for more discussion. We have time, as our engineer has indicated. So, but we need to make a decision relatively quickly. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Baraboo?
So we're talking about only one set of lights on 2nd Avenue then, correct? If it goes the other direction with nothing at 6th and nothing at 4th.
Well, the motion on the floor is to
Well, I
have,
know what it is on the floor. I'm just saying in the future, if this doesn't pass, which, when you start thinking about it, a three-way stop is enough at 6th. You don't need a four-way stop there, because there's only three ways you can do, except coming out of the bank, you might have their own. That's all, I'm just projecting ahead here, Mayor, because I may not vote for this motion now either. I was supportive of the way it was set up. But if the fire department says they can get down 4th and they're going to be moving anyway, okay, I made up my decision.
thank you, Counselor Bearable. I know that Matt Reed laid it out for us. He gave us options of which way to go. He said, if you want a light at 6, we can put one in there for a stop. It doesn't make that much difference. So it was up to us to make that decision. This is the recommendation that we went by. So we'll go to Counselor Beyondich first, and then over to Counselor Paulson. Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. Could you read the motion back, Pam? Thank you.
I was going to ask for clarification on that because I believe,
Motion, it was just motion to approve the
Recommendations from SEH for the
recommendation.
Chestnut Street Signal Project.
and it's for second, third,
And Matt
fifth.
clarified at the meeting of the Committee of the Whole that it was 2nd, 4th, and 6th. And the reason we need to approve this now is because we have federal funding tied to this project, and the environmental review takes 6 months. So this does not mean that this is final. This just means that he needs to get plans submitted to the federal agencies to show what we are doing with the federal funds.
Thank you, Britt. I was remiss there, so I apologize.
That's okay. So there will be, as I mentioned at the Committee of the Whole meeting, there will be a chance for us to review the actual street plans once they get completed.
Thank you. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, I guess that does change things, because I was just going to say maybe I should just rescind the motion and we go back and talk about it. But if we have time to talk about it.
We do. It's just really the necessity to get to the federal government, the 30% plans to show what we're doing. And then
And
we can.
does this tie, I mean, I guess, Matt always says, put everything in there and then remove what,
Correct,
whatever. So will this tie to any funding as well? So should
Yes.
we leave that in there?
I-
And then remove it upon discussion with the fire department or whatever? I mean, if that's
Yeah, and I
what's
think a
needed.
lot of what we talked about at the Committee of the Whole, what I heard too was programming, which we cannot do in our existing 1988 system.
Right.
The new lights, you can program so that they only turn on at Northern State Bank when somebody pulls up. So that never goes green that way
So
unless
they won't have
somebody
that
comes
wait
up.
time.
Correct. And there's a lot of different things we can do once we get them. I did have a former employee who used to work on the lights downtown come in and remind me of a few things that they were looped together for a reason. And that was the way it was designed in 88. We can change that now. We can
Perfect.
change it so the lights, once the fire department hits Second Avenue and they turn, that we can have it set to automate that the rest of them turn too, so that they're going straight full bore with nothing there. So there's just a lot of things we can do once we get the new system in.
Okay, so I guess that being said, I would hold the motion the same. I was going to change it, but I'll hold it the same.
Okay, moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? No.
Paulson?
Yes.
Beyondich? Johnson?
Aye.
Aaron's-Ellie? Huffy?
No.
Baraboo? Friedli?
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Rockala from our Public Access Programming and our Cable Commission was present to discuss some technical issues we've had lately with our city council meetings and the YouTube recordings and the Channel 5 recordings. He gave us a very exciting glimpse of what they're working at. They're actually looking at doing some really awesome things for those that do not have Mediacom, such as a Roku channel or other live streaming options. It was a great discussion, and I'm glad Steve was able to make it. He did mention that he does have a wish list that he's going to be bringing forward for some items that they want to update for the cable access studio and for recording of public events. That goes into Sherry's magic budget. Right, Sherry? Dan Ravidu from the Wolverine Blue Line Club was present to discuss the Dryland Training Room at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. He stated he was speaking on behalf of the high school boys and youth hockey program as a spokesperson only, not as a board member. It was a very great discussion. Mr. Ravidu discussed the implied contract that he felt that he had been working on with staff. After that discussion, it was moved and supported to direct city staff and the Park and Recreation Director to work with the Wolverine Blue Line Club to develop an exclusive contract for the Dryland Training Room at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Thank you. We're looking for council action.
I'll move to table this based on our conversation earlier about, with the fitness instructors.
Okay, moved by Councilor Johnson to table. Is there support?
I'll support.
Supported by Councilor Paulson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
No. Roll call, please.
Beyondich. Johnson.
Aye.
Aaronzelli. Huffy.
No.
Baraboo.
Well, we'll have to wait. He's here. He's got to vote. So move to the next, okay. Okay, would you repeat there was a motion on the floor to direct city staff and Park and Rec's director to work with the Wolverine Blue Line Club to develop an exclusive contract for the dryland room at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. There are 3 ayes and 1 nay so far. You're the next person to vote.
I'm a yes for that.
Okay, you're last to table. Okay,
Motion to table,
motion was to table.
to
Yep.
table it. Correct.
I may change my vote here. What's the tally right now?
Well, Councilor Beyondich would like to change her vote
Okay.
as well, so.
I hate to do this.
No,
Can you
we-
clarify that again?
Okay, we can revote. Let's clarify the motion, then we'll go through the vote
I
again.
just need to understand what
Certainly.
it is.
Yeah, sure. Motion one more time, please.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Paulson, to table the discussion regarding the Wolverine Blue Line Club to develop an exclusive contract for the dryland training room at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Okay, would you start the roll call again? I mean,
I speak.
yeah, well, it was moved to table, so there's no discussion, unfortunately. So it has been moved to table. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
No.
No. Roll call, please.
Beyondich. Johnson.
Aye.
Aaronzelli. Huffy.
No.
Baraboo.
No.
Friedlieb.
No.
Paulson.
No.
Motion fails 6-1. Thank you. So
Is there further action, Mayor, on this?
we have to take some further action there. So the motion is to direct city staff to obtain, to work with the Wolverine Blue Line Club to develop an exclusive contract for the dryland training room at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. The move to table did not pass. Looking for council action.
So moved.
Councilor Friedli moves to approve. Is there support? Support by Councilor Barnzelli. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so I agreed last time when the clubs were here, I said that I had issues with exclusivity. And that was my main issue, was the terminology exclusivity and exclusivity of the dryland training room. I changed my vote in support based on the group that was here and how they basically described how their equipment was missing or what have you. So I changed the intent, or I changed, I guess, my no vote to a yes vote. So now I'm in a dilemma when we have other community members that are taxpayers that have other suggestions for how to utilize that space. And we're directing our staff to go into an exclusive usage contract. I have to be honest, I have concerns now, and I don't know what to do about those concerns. So I want to be fair to any community member that comes forward. And the reason, I mean, this is hard for me to, there was a lot of people here, and I don't want to make any user group upset, but I just have an issue with exclusivity. And, the gal that was here tonight, the gal from the fitness, from the YMCA, was really spot on. When those kids are in school, those rooms aren't going to be used. So I have an issue with this exclusivity. I'm fine directing our Park and Rec director to negotiate a contract. I think that word exclusivity is just it's a big deal for me personally, after what we just heard, that other user groups have really good ideas how to utilize an underutilized space 9 months out of the year. So I don't know where we go from here, but I know we have to direct Brian to negotiate with the, is it Raha or Blue Line Club? I think it was the Blue Line Club. Yep. So I don't know, I guess I just leave that on the table, but after we had this discussion, I would really love to have a meeting with all user groups and get that input. I mean, I think she gave very valuable input tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. We just told those folks that we would have a discussion with them. And by giving Brian the authority to negotiate an exclusive contract, there's no discussion to be had, because the Blue Line Club will get exclusive use of it, and only they can use it, and they get to decide who gets to use it. And again, this also has to do with what's in the room. That was my point at the last meeting and the meeting before, is why can't we share this space? It is public space. I do not believe for a second that any user group would completely pull out of that building and go use a building that's antiquated. I don't believe that for a second. I'm going to call their bluff. If they want to go and use the outdoors arenas, that's fine. I believe that we will fill that space in a hot minute, that there are other user groups that are not at the table right now that will fill in, and they will use that space as public space. And that's been my whole point this whole time. Just because there was 40 people in here from the hockey saying we want that space and nobody else came, that's great, but other people want to use that space. So I will not support exclusivity in that space. It's a public space. It needs to be used 9 months out of the year, 7 hours a day. There's opportunities for us to use that space, and I will hold that firm. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. May I call Brian Silber? So I know when we talked about this facility, and things changed when the Y closed, definitely, because we knew that there was room at the Y for these classes such as she held.
Yes.
But from the very beginning, we talked about the dryland training room, correct?
What do you consider the very beginning?
Way back when those rooms, when we had 3 rooms, we had the dryland training room designated for that.
Okay.
Then we had the room where all the machine equipment is. Then we had the 3rd room that was going to be designated for dance or yoga.
Okay. Going back, I don't have my notes in front of me, so I'm not going to try and quote dates, but I will quote meetings and groups that we had the discussions with. When prior to the city referendum vote in November of 2018, part of the referendum vote was 2 sheets of ice, fitness rooms, and we had shown pictures of a workout room and a dance studio, a walking track, and then event space for seating up to 500. That is what the citizens voted on. So once that was passed and we began the design development phase, that was what we were moving into. Meeting, I believe, was sometime in February where we had finished design development and we had squares on the map of what was going to be where in the building. We released that to the public. That meeting was held in the south room of the Miners Memorial Building. And I want to say we probably had about 50 people there, from hockey to figure skating to general interested members of the public, in addition to several of you counselors attended that meeting. It was after that meeting that one of the hockey parents came to me and said, "Hey, Brian, have you seen this amenity, a dry land room that is in other facilities?" And not being a hockey guy, being more of a football guy, I had said, "No, I have not seen this, but let me get some more information from you about this." And he told me more about what a dry land room was and how it was utilized. I took that information back to our design team as we were continuing to go on, and we kept that if we had a way to work that type of a room into the design of the building, we would. Well, when we took the fitness rooms from a downstairs location to an upstairs location above the locker rooms, there was a very odd-shaped room that originally was going to be used for storage. However, our design team said that would be the place that we could make into this dry land room to meet a need that our hockey people have said that they would like to see added to the facility if we were able to make it possible. So that was during the building design process. So it was not an original portion. The original portion that people refer to was the weight room and the dance room, which we still have. What the Blue Line Club is asking for exclusive rights to, and it's not just exclusive rights for the boys hockey team, it's exclusive rights for hockey people in general, is that dry land room only. They don't want, and they have said, I believe at the last meeting, they said if they have that room, they don't need to utilize either of the other 2 rooms. Everything they need is in that one room. So we still have the room with all the cardiovascular and weight equipment. We still have the room, what I call the dance and fitness room. Others have referred to it as the yoga room. It's the room where the figure skating harness is currently in. And that's what the figure skaters want access to, is a room with space where their harness is so that they can practice off-ice jumps. So those 2 rooms, the weight room and the dance studio room, will still be accessible to the public. City Council voted that we would go into a membership model for those. And so we're still working on that and figuring out staffing and coming up with all the rules and regulations that we will need to implement before we have a grand opening for that. Does that answer your question, Counselor?
It does. So in the beginning, you had 2 rooms virtually for the public.
Correct.
The dryland training room came by accident of a storage space that you made into one. So at the very beginning plan had a weight room and the dance fitness room.
Correct.
Those 2 rooms that the public still has full access to.
Correct.
So the dryland training room that we talked about at the last meeting, they are paying the city $450 a month for 3 years. for that exclusive?
They have made an
That
offer.
we have no agreement with them for that room.
They have made an offer of that dollar amount. We have not confirmed or
Okay, right.
negotiated that, but that was their beginning offer.
And that's
That was-
and that's the
okay.
purpose of the motion here. to
And
move-
then when we talked about the weights, they again stepped in and said they would offer to pay that portion for the free weights, if I recall.
Yes. And that's what this motion is that is out there, is to give us permission to negotiate terms for their use of that room. Previously, the agreement was in place that any of our partner groups, we would provide access to those rooms. They are wanting exclusive use of the rooms and wanting to pay for the exclusive use of those, of that one room.
They're willing to pay for that room. Have they put money towards the flooring for any of that?
They, independently of us, they did purchase flooring to put in that room.
So they've already put money into that
Yeah.
space.
We did not ask them to do that.
Okay. So, and I think when the Y closed, it was really kind of threw me for a loop, that now what? Because I always thought people would go to the Y for these other activities. They had the space. We still have not figured out, we have the room with the machines,
Correct.
and we have this free space.
Yes.
So is that something that, I mean, we've talked, she came in and talked to us, is that a space that could be rented out?
At the committee of the whole meeting that we had over at the event center, I proposed two different ways for us to manage that room, either hiring instructors as independent contractors, and we manage the programs and pay the instructor as an independent contractor, or that we would lease out the room, and it was $25 per class, not per month, like she had said.
But they were responsible for all of their costs.
They would be responsible for all of their costs. Just like when we are renting out the meeting classroom, this afternoon, I had the police chiefs had a meeting in there. We rented the room to them, and they provided everything that they needed for their meeting. It would be the same thing, but for a fitness class. So we have the proposal, or I've presented the proposal of two different operating models that we can go with, or we could go with a hybrid of doing both, and that may be successful. I know there are a few fitness instructors that would like the opportunity to just hand us $25 for the right to do that, run their own program, and keep all the revenue. There are other instructors that do not want the headache and the hassle of conducting registration, collecting the money, doing all those things. They want to know, oh, I have a class on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. I show up pumped and energized and put on a great class, and then I can go home. So my personal belief is a hybrid model of offering both would be the most successful model.
I think, and from what I gathered from her, that's kind of when she did that at the Y, she just showed up and did her class.
She was an employee of the Y. I'm not proposing that we make them employees. I'm proposing that they are independent contractors, much like our figure skating instructors are independent contractors.
Do they carry their insurance, or are they required to? Or does the city, how does that work? Because I think that was one of the things she had talked about.
An independent contractor would be required to carry their own insurance. Mr. Lindsay, please correct me if I'm wrong, but they would not fall underneath our insurance.
Mr. Lindsay?
That is correct. The nature of the independent contractor relationship is the person acting as the independent contractor supplies all of their own tools, equipment. Insurance is responsible for all their own taxes and the like.
Okay. Have to think on that.
But that is not the motion that you are discussing at this point.
No, I just wanted clarification on how all this came to be and where it is and where we're going, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. Counselor Freely first, then Counselor Bearable, and then over to Counselor Paulson. Counselor Freely.
So just to tap into your professional expertise, Brian, as the overseer of that entire facility, is the dry land room currently equipped, scheduled, and utilized appropriately for what it was developed for?
Yes.
Thank you. And so even during the time that we were under contract with the YMCA, at any time ever, when the public came to utilize the other spaces, did it create any imposition to the public to have that exclusively used by the hockey program?
Throughout the summer, the hockey camps have been using that, and our agreement was whenever one of our partners needed to use the room, they would have the use to use the room. So throughout the summer, hockey camps had been utilizing those rooms. The public, I've seen one member of the public in that room, and it actually, that one member of the public was in there after the YMCA closed.
In the dry land room?
In the dry land room.
Okay. And so I guess what I'm asking though is for the public still had access to the other two available rooms and equipment.
Even while hockey camps were going on and the hockey camps were utilizing the dry land room.
And any and all people that were utilizing those other rooms by way of the YMCA, did that create any imposition on them to not have the dry land available to them?
Not in my opinion.
I don't think so either. Okay. So, and also they are willing to pay the lease for that equipment to defray the costs of any lease that we have on that equipment.
They are willing to discuss that, yes.
And they've already bought and purchased property in there already for the shooting floor and the boards and so on and so forth.
Boards were actually boards that came out of the Miners Memorial Building.
Did you guys put that together? Did the
We put that together, yes.
for them? For the exclusive use of
And
the
once we had the dry land room and it was designed to have a shooting station in there, that's why we did not surplus sale all of the boards from the main rink. That way we were able to bring some of the history of the miners into the new building.
And into the dry land hockey room.
And into the dry land hockey room.
All right, thank you. So basically, you do not feel there's going to be any imposition to the general public to utilize the other two spaces if the dry land is exclusive?
I'm sure somebody will not be happy. We've yet to make 100% of the people happy 100% of the time. So I'm sure somebody will find fault with whatever direction that we go. But it's my opinion overall, if hockey has exclusive use, and that would be our youth hockey that's age appropriate to use that room, the high school hockey, the camps, if they had exclusive use of that room, it would not negatively impact the majority of the other users of the weight room or the dance and aerobics room.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Bearable?
Yeah, Brian, we're looking at this whole building as not just Virginia, it's the whole region that's using it. You got all your hockey players from all over the place. You got parents from all over the place. This is not an exclusivity thing because the Blue Line Club has agreed to some of the things we talked about at our meeting. They've even agreed to pay more than $450 a month when it comes to that. They sort of said they'd go to $750. That's what I heard. So that's, and I think the other counselors heard that. That middle room is not being utilized right now. Let it go for the aerobics, the whatever classes, dance classes, whatever.
The middle room,
And
the
you schedule,
intention.
and you schedule, you do the schedule for all these other complicated schedules. How hard is it to bring an instructor into that middle room to do that and figure out time that figure skaters can use the lift?
It is
for the jumps.
simply
That's simple.
scheduling. Right now, the only thing that room, the middle room, the dance and aerobics room has been being utilized for is for off-ice jumps by our figure skating program. Our figure skating coaches are great at communicating to us that, hey, we would like to use the room on these days at this time. We put that in the schedule. at that point, we would not schedule another class at those same times. In addition, what I would do from a scheduling standpoint is if you were going to be running a class from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in that room, I would reserve that room from 5:30 to 7:30. That way you have setup time and also jibber-jabbing time after the class so that people can chit-chat, and they're not going to get out right away. So it's comes down to scheduling that room. So we would do the same thing. If figure skating wants to use it from 7 to 8 o'clock, then we wouldn't schedule anything half hour either way, either side of that, so that there is plenty of time for turnover.
And we are anticipating in the future a lot more ice time. From my understanding of utilization, that ice may go longer in the summer, may go into, never close it.
But we already have, this year, we will have run ice all but 6 weeks out of the year. That will continue. Now, we only have ice, essentially year-round ice, minus those 6 weeks in the Chevrolet Arena, which is the secondary arena. But that, I foresee that continuing and the ice demand to continue to grow for that arena. I've actually had several people ask us if we would consider putting ice in both arenas throughout the summer, which would make it more attractive to tournaments to come into the area. However, all of that boils down to a cost analysis and is setting up that arena, the increase of utilities going to offset the revenue that would be brought in from how many hockey tournaments.
And there are other venues that you can look at. You got the 16-year-old groups all around the state, up to 18, where they're not part of like high school hockey and stuff, but they have leagues. Those can be brought in at tremendous amounts of money during the summer months. They're looking for places to play. All these kids from the Twin Cities all over the place. We just have to program it correctly and advertise it correctly.
One of the neatest camps that we had was a 2-day camp, and it was the Minnesota sled hockey camp that was there. So that was a very neat camp that was up here throughout for 2 days over the summer.
All right, let's get back to the original, if we may, please. The original motion, which is motion and second, is to direct city staff and Park and Recreations to work with the Blue Line Club to develop an exclusive contract for the dryland training room at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. We're simply asking them to meet with them, hammer out an agreement. It has to come back to us for approval, for discussion, for potential changes if necessary moving forward. So let's stick to that if we could, please. Councilor Paulson?
I will try.
Thank you.
Mayor.
All right, thank you very much.
No, this actually is sticking to it. Just before I feel comfortable moving forward, I don't want to go back on my vote that I made when the Blue Line Club was here. But I do, Brian, want to ask you, then, I mean, we all know that that yoga dance space was for programming and the Y was going to do the programming and the Y closed. There's a lot of disenfranchised people. Do you feel, were you here when the gal spoke and
Yes.
there were 2 gals here? Okay. Do you feel that there would be adequate time and space to do the programming that they're potentially suggesting that they would like to bring forward? I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what the YMCA's previous schedules were for classes or anything like that, but I want to be mindful. I do not like the word exclusivity. That's just bothers me, but I don't want to go back on what I already stated and committed from my previous vote. But I do want to make sure in me feeling comfortable moving forward with directing you to do this, I want to get your opinion. Could we, if we had this meeting, if we did a meeting with the user groups, could we accomplish some of those suggestions?
Absolutely. The room that they're referring to is the room that I call the dance and aerobics room. Currently, with how it is set up, you could have an instructor and approximately 20 class participants in there at one time. So after you get over 20 people, it's going to start getting very cramped. Plus, we do have a couple of other pieces of equipment. So if we see classes are really booming, then we may have to consider moving some of that equipment. I have evaluated different ways to move some of that equipment into the weight room if the need arises, but that makes the weight room even tighter than it already is. So I would like to leave all equipment where it currently resides, just for the public's enjoyment of working out in the facility, that they're not feeling like they are stacked on top of each other.
Thank you for that answer. I just, when we have the public come to a meeting and speak, I think it's really important that we weigh that input. We get to hear a lot from the main users, but we don't get to hear ideas from outside, of those specific user groups. So it was refreshing for me to hear, but I also want to weigh that, and I want to be respectful and mindful of when community people come, that we listen to what their needs are as well.
And I know Jim Hunt was meeting with a potential fitness instructor today about renting the room. I don't know who that instructor was or how that conversation went, but we have been trying to communicate loosely with some. We don't have a firm direction of which way we're going at this
I don't want to
point.
get off. Before I felt comfortable moving forward, I just wanted to hear you give me that input. So I appreciate
Two
that.
totally different rooms.
Thank you, Brian.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported to direct city staff and Park and Recreation to work with the Wolverine Balloon Club to develop an exclusive contract for the dry landing room at the Iron Trail Memorial Event Center. You'll come back to us, we'll discuss even further and determine what is appropriate to move forward. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. My input would be, as you move forward, is this should be a one-year agreement, not a 3-year agreement, to mirror the other discussions we're having with the other hockey users. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. So it has been moved and supported to direct staff for one more time. Read the motion back, please, and then we'll vote.
Moved by Counselor Friedlieb, supported by Counselor Baranzelli, to direct city staff to continue discussions for city staff and the Park and Recreation Director to work with Wolverine Blue Line Club to develop an exclusive contract for the dryland training room at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center.
Thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Johnson?
No.
Baranzelli? Yes. Huffy?
Aye.
Baraboo?
Aye.
Friedlieb?
Aye.
Paulson? Beyondich?
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you. We're getting to you. Thank you for your patience.
Attorney Lindsay gave an update about the property at 410 Fifth Street South. It was noted that the process going forward might be a little longer than everybody anticipated. However, this is the process, and we are moving forward with the legal process that we have. It was also moved and supported to direct city staff to obtain an appraisal on the property located at 410 and 412 Fifth Street South.
Thank you.
I'll move the approval.
Move to approve by Councilor Paulson. Is there support? Support by Councilor Friedlieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to approve the updated policies for the Virginia Public Library. And we do have our library director here if you have any questions.
Okay. Looking for a motion?
Support.
Moved by Councilor Beyondich and supported by Councilor Johnson to approve the updated policies for the Virginia Library. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to approve the revisions to the city personnel policies, Section 8, entitled Drug and Alcohol Testing and Drug-Free Workplace Act Policy for Non-Commercial Drivers, the non-DOT policy.
So moved.
Moved to approve by Councilor Friedlieb. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Councilor Baraboo. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to approve the request from Gethsemane Lutheran Church and Peace United Methodist Church to block off 3rd Street South between 9th and 10th Avenue and the portion of 3rd Street between both churches and to allow city staff to assist in blocking the road on Wednesday, August 24th, 2022, for an event that they'll be having.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Support by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries.
It was moved and supported to approve the license agreement with American Legion Post 239 for lots 21 and 22, Block 18, Virginia Plat.
Okay, thank you. So we had a discussion earlier by appearances, and so we're looking for some council directive. I wanted to disclose that I must recuse myself from any vote. I'm a member of the American Legion and of the VFW, so I would not be able to take any voting action formally as pursuant to our conflict of interest policy. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. In light of all the discussion that was had this evening, I don't know if it would be appropriate to table this, to have further discussion. I want to let everyone obviously give input, but that would be my intent after what kind of was brought and ideas that were brought forward tonight. So with that, I see lights on, so I'll wait, but that would be my intent.
Okay,
Thank you.
so you're not making a motion right at this time?
I'll let it continue.
All right, thank you. Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, Mayor, I don't know whether, I'm going to have to ask Brian this. I'm also a member of Post 239, but I don't have any monetary except paying my dues. I can still vote on this, correct? Or for,
Brian?
or do I need to recuse myself because of that? And I've been a 32-year member of that post.
Mayor. So the answer to this question is not a simple and straightforward answer because the question involves the larger conflict of interest analysis. The simple analysis and the easy one is always if you've got a financial stake in the decision that's before the body that you're representing, that's a clear conflict. The other conflicts are, or the other items that we must avoid is the appearance of conflict. And so the question is twofold. First, could you set aside your membership in those organizations and vote independently of any feelings that you have toward the organization, or would your membership and participation in those organizations influence your vote? And secondarily, obviously, if the answer to that question is that your participation and membership in those organizations would influence your vote, that's a conflict, and you should abstain from voting. And then finally, the question is whether your vote on the matter would create an appearance of conflict that would lead the public to a presumption that you're conflicted. And those, the analysis goes on further in those circumstances, but the best practice is to try and avoid those appearance of conflicts. So then the balance of the analysis looks at the balance of the vote, the need for your vote, and so essentially, is the vote so close that it would be split without your vote being cast? Are there enough people to make a quorum to cast the vote necessary to make the decision? And so the answer is less clear. Best practice would be to avoid the appearance of conflict.
Thank you. Councilor Freely.
Sure. What if I don't care, Brian? I basically attend very few meetings. I basically pay a check once a year for membership. That's basically my commitment to that organization. So I suppose I should recuse myself on this. I don't think I need to.
No monetary gain from that.
Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. So the answer to the question may be if what you're, a couple of good things that have happened here. Number one, you've disclosed your membership in the organization, which is the first step. And secondly, I mean, if what you're doing is making the record that you're so removed from the organization or removed enough from the organization that you can act independently and without the fact of your membership in those organizations influencing your decision, and you're still acting objectively in what you believe to be the best interest of the city, then there's no absolute need that you abstain from voting. And then it's the best practice as to whether or not the appearance of conflict is so great that you should avoid the vote.
Okay. I don't know. It's a kind of convoluted because I have never made a voting decision in that organization where my vote has counted there. I haven't voted on their decision-making process. So I don't know where I stand. safest, I guess, is to recuse myself, right, Mayor?
Well, that's your decision to make. You're no longer a member.
Well, I'm still a member of the organization. I just paid my dues the other day, so.
Thank you. All right,
I plan on keeping it because I've been there 32 straight years.
okay, thank you. Counselor Freely.
You know, there were times when I was a child and my father would go down the basement or out into the garage to work on a project, and then invariably I would end up hearing him swear, and I would go down and say, "Dad, what's going on?" And he'd say, "Gary, nothing is ever as easy as it seems." And neither is this agreement. It seemed simple enough. I mean, we have an active and engaged Legion that does a lot of service events for the community. But until Matt came to tell us about the fact that there are a lot of other residents and people that utilize that space on a daily basis, I think we have to rethink what we're doing and how we're doing it and how much space we're going to be allowing to the Legion to utilize and at what time frames they'd be able to utilize that. So I need to backtrack on where we're at with this and reevaluate where we're at with this and make it so that it's going to be conducive to those other people that need that space when they need that space, and hopefully still be able to allow the Legion to use it accordingly when they need to. So that's where I'm at this point.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Freely. Counselor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I will move this back to committee to have a discussion, to have a plan to how to utilize that entire lot, 2 lots, that best meets the needs of all of the neighbors and the community.
So your motion is to move it back to the committee whole meeting for additional discussion?
No, it's to move it to the appropriate subcommittee so that we can get a plan to bring forward. I think what I'm thinking here is it's a big lot. There's no reason we can't put the space, the street facing part can be some kind of little pass-through park pavilion, something, and then it's fenced appropriately so parking can be behind it. But I think that's not a large group discussion to start. I think that's a smaller group to move it forward. So I don't know if it's buildings and grounds or streets and alleys or which committee that would be.
I believe that would be Building and Grounds to discuss that. Counselor Paulson?
Thank you. So then that goes to my further point. Do we need a tabling motion to what's on the floor? It's on the agenda for approval of this license.
But I've made a motion to move the discussion first.
So do we
Because
have
if we
to deal
table
with,
it,
don't we have to deal with the agenda item even though he's moving something separate?
Just as a point of order.
Point of order.
So at any time, can a motion be made to table while another motion has been made?
Correct. A tabling motion is an intervening motion.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm not asking that. I'm not asking to table what Counselor Johnson just suggested. I'm wondering what we need to do with the agenda item, Brian.
Well, I think the motion, if I may, Counselor Paulson, is Counselor Johnson has asked that it be moved to appropriate committee to discuss this even further, and I believe.
I understand that.
Okay, so that's the
I'm
motion.
following, I'm tracking with you, but what is in our packet is a license agreement.
Mhm.
So what do we do with that? What's before us to decide?
Well,
That's my question.
yeah, it hasn't been moved and supported in that regard.
I understand that. I'm
please.
asking about the process.
Okay, Brian, could you clarify that for Counselor Paulson, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Counselor, I think the answer to the question is, I believe, as I heard Counselor Johnson's motion, it would be to refer back to committee, refer the agenda item back to committee, which essentially would dispose of the item before the council today. So the item is to approve a license agreement, and essentially what the motion, as I understand it, is to refer that license agreement back to the committee, which has, in a roundabout way, the same effect as a tabling motion, but as a body, what you're doing is sending it back for further review or research, and by sending it back, it removes the item from the table, so it's no longer in consideration. So I think
We're doing the correct process is all I want to make sure.
from a procedural matter, I think this accomplishes the goal that I'm
Okay.
hearing.
Yeah, very good, thank you.
And so that's the motion by Counselor Johnson, looking for support for Counselor Johnson's motion.
I'll support with further discussion with regard to who this body will be that's gonna, that
Okay,
should
all
it
right,
not be us?
all right. Supported by Counselor Freely, but just before we go to the discussion, just to clarify, what is the motion? Make sure this is accurate.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Friedlieb, to refer the discussion to the appropriate committee to review the license agreement with American Legion Post 239 for lots 21 and 22, Block 18, Virginia.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Moved and supported. Further discussion, Counselor Freely.
And so could that be us as a committee of the whole? And should it not be? Now that we have this new information, we've all been exposed to that new information, can we not then have staff direct to what would I say? How do they, like, to manipulate the contract so that it would be appeasing both the Legion for their necessary needs that they have and the residents and the people that have ownership in those buildings around it? I mean, that, we've got new information, so like, we don't want to approve what the Legion is asking because it's a little more expansive than we thought and more imposing than we ever thought. So shouldn't we be able to get together as a committee of the whole, reevaluate that, and determine or come up with a plan that would be more appropriate for both the Legion and the surrounding residents and landowners?
And I think the motion is vague enough where staff can move it wherever they deem appropriate. Is that amenable to you, Counselor Johnson?
That's fine, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And I would ask that the parties that are here would be invited to that meeting so we could have input.
Yeah, I believe all affected parties, yes. Be appropriate. Thank you, Counselor Beyondich.
So it can be discussed on what the needs are. Okay, thank you.
In addition to that, that gives us the option of saying, well, what is the city's responsibility when we do that? You know, parking lot, what we have to do to maintain that and how that works for our planning and zoning and what we're required to do. So has been moved and supported to refer back to a committee as determined by staff. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I must recuse myself. So. Okay, so a motion passes 5 and no nays and 2 recusals.
Yep.
Thank you.
Item 9.1H is approve the proposed ordinance, Chapter 10, Section 10.38, which is a moratorium on the sale of hemp-derived THC food and beverages in the city of Virginia, Minnesota.
Thank you. Counselor Paulson?
I will move to approve, and I would assume this is the first reading then.
This is the first reading, correct?
So I'll move to approve the first reading.
Okay, Counselor Paulson moves to approve the first reading. Is there support? Support by Counselor Barnzelli. Further discussion? I know that we're going to be looking at the timeline in that regard, and so, I mean, even though it says, you know, we can make adjustments based upon, if we get satisfactory information, you know, it doesn't have to be a year. Is that correct, Brian? I mean, we're just extending out there just in case. So thank you. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Johnson?
And that kind of where my question was, is how do we ensure that this doesn't get pushed behind and then at the end of the year, we're scrambling. I just want to make sure that it stays on staff's radar and.
It does sunset, Attorney Lane just, it sunsets within a year. So if after a year we haven't done anything, it just goes away. So it's. However, staff is, I can assure you, staff is currently working on an ordinance as we speak. What the mayor has alluded to is the zoning is the part that we're hesitating on at the moment. What zoned districts and how close to facilities such as licensed schools, daycares, do we want to have these kind of products? So that's what we're working on right now. That's
I
the delay.
appreciate that clarification very much, Britt. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to set a budget meeting for Tuesday, August 30th, 2022 at 8:30 a.m. And I'd like to report that I have invited every department head. They will all be there.
Moving it, please.
Okay, We have a motion to set the budget date to Tuesday, August 30th, 2022, 8:30 a.m. here in the council chambers. Looking for a motion. Moved by Counselor Friedlieb and supported by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Was moved and supported to approve the purchase of the property in the Public Safety Development Area located at 112 9th Street South.
Do we need to close this meeting, John? No, good, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Moved to approve by Counselor Friedlieb and supported by
Support.
Counselor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
It was moved and supported to bring forward to this meeting the resolution to call for public hearing to approve the intent for the levy for the Virginia Economic Development Authority with the hearing set on Tuesday, September 13th, 2022 at 5 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Moved to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by, there's several there. Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. We'll move to item 10. Any more? I'm sorry, Britt, anything else?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10, Commission Liaison Reports. Does anybody have a Commission Liaison report they'd like to give today? I hope not.
Well, I did have, Mayor,
But apparently we do. Counselor Bearable.
Well, you're lucky I forgot the Public Utilities minutes at home, so I'll have to do it the next time. There wasn't any basic information other than they clarified the college deal we talked about as a grant. It is not a grant. It's a reduction in price for that 1 year like they did with homeowners and stuff and businesses. So they corrected their minutes.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to,
No injury reports either.
pardon?
No injury reports at all from the Public Utilities.
Okay, no injury reports. Okay, I'll move to item number 11, the department heads. So we'll first, Britt, anything else you have to like to add or report?
Not that I can think of at this time. Thank you, though.
Okay, Food Truck Festival, we'll make that a big announcement.
Yes, Food Truck Festival, September 17th, downtown, starting at 11 a.m. It's supposed to go till 7 p.m. We have never made it to the end with the food. But we do have other events during the Food Truck Festival this year. We're going to have live music downtown, and we also have a bingo at the Elks Club at 1 o'clock.
Come hungry, come thirsty.
Yes.
Okay, very good, thank you. Brian, anything from the legal department?
No additional reports today, Mayor.
Thank you. Pam, anything? Thank you. Sherry? Mr. Sullivan? Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, we'll go to item 12, council reports. Is there any council department reports? Jody?
It's not a
Gabanowski, our library director. Good.
It's not a report, it's just a
Update.
FYI, because we won't have a meeting that's open before this happens. So we are doing a Quad Cities Read, road tripping with the authors. The first event will take place on, there's a lot of events right after Labor Day, so there's events on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday. The big ones are on Thursday night at 6 o'clock. We'll have two authors with us, and they're both Minnesota authors. So we've got Sarah Stonich and Lorna Lanovic will be with at Virginia on Thursday, and they'll also be at Evelyn on Saturday at 10. We also have book discussions happening that week. So if you would like more information about this, call Virginia Public Library. We can give you that information, what books they're discussing at the other libraries, and so you can come to any or all of the events. So that was it.
Thank you, Jody, very much. Thank you for sitting through the council meeting, and you come every meeting to give us a fine report. We appreciate that. Brian, anything from you or the department heads? I was remiss in not calling you forward, Jody forward, so I'll correct my mistake and call you forward.
I think I've spoken enough tonight, but just want to remind everybody that we will be having Fun Pianos, a night of fun and comedy with dueling pianos at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center on Friday, September 9th. Tickets are available at the Park and Recreation office at the event center, or you can purchase them online. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Okay, Any council reports? Okay, I have just one item. I'll be brief. I attended the school board meeting last night with respect to the discussion about the proposed use of the facility by the Rock Ridge hockey program. And Evelyn also had a proposal there. It was tabled, and I'm going to reserve comment about this right now because we're going to be discussing it with some of the, I think the superintendent and some of the hockey staff are going to be coming to the office and meeting with Britt and anybody else. Of course, we all got the invite to go there. It'll be posted just in case there's a quorum present. I have a lot of questions about how that's moving forward, and so we'll figure that out. So some of you watched that whole meeting. I sat through that whole meeting, and that's being said, we'll talk on Thursday. So I don't want to vent anymore here. I don't want to vent at all. So, all right, thank you. So we're going to adjourn the council meeting tonight to Tuesday, September 13th, 2022, for the public hearing at 5 p.m. and the council meeting at 5:30 p.m. Thank you, everybody. It was a long meeting, a lot of great discussion, and thanks for everything that you all do because it's a tough job. So we stand adjourned. Thank you. Have a good evening.